What's up guys, Penguin Overlord here, and welcome back to Recon Breakpoint. In this video, I'm going to review the Panther class. So as always, we're going to cover the class technique, class item, class proficiencies, as well as some recommended perks and loadout weapons that I recommend. So let's get started. So first up, we've got the class technique, the Cloak Run. This is a highly useful technique. So basically how this works is, when you activate it, you drop a smoke grenade and you go from engaged detection if enemies have engaged you to alerted detection, where enemies know that you're in the base and you're causing harm, but they don't exactly know where you are, so they aren't going to exactly shoot you on sight. So this is a highly useful technique when things have gone wrong. Even if you're the best stealth player, sometimes you make a mistake, you shoot the wrong person or the right person at the wrong time, and they see you, they get alerted, it snowballs out of control. So this basically gives you a bailout, especially if you've got multiple enemies or drones all in one place, alerted and trying to kill you. So this is actually very helpful when things have gone wrong. So obviously, as you to charge it up, you charge it up through getting kills and damage dealt to drones, kills while in stealth, and close range kills. It does take a little while to charge up, especially if you just use it after you got detected, but it does do a decent job at filling up. It's not as fast as, say, the Echelons technique, which out of all of the class techniques I've used is the fastest recharging technique, but it does fill up fairly quickly, especially if you stay in close quarters. So overall, it's a very useful technique. Definitely good if you like playing in close quarters and you happen to get in trouble, because sometimes it happens to me, it happens to you, it happens to anyone. Sometimes you just make a mistake and you need something to bail you out. So this is a very useful technique. Highly recommend it. Next up, we've got the class item, the Cloaking Spray. So what this does is that it renders you undetectable to drones and to enemy players in the PvP for 60 seconds. This class item is my most used class item out of all of the ones that exist in the game, because this basically makes you invisible to drones, which is very useful, not just for hunting behemoth drones, which I do quite a bit in this game, but also when you go into a base and you've got multiple drones that you have to deal with. This basically renders you invisible to them, which means you can take them down quite easier, as opposed to not having the cloaking spray. So overall, again, another highly recommended class item. It's very, very useful and yeah, highly helpful when you've got multiple drones to deal with. It also helps with the drone areas as well, of course, since of course you're invisible to the drones. Let's move on. One more thing before we move on, because I forgot to mention this when I recorded this video. You do want to make sure that when you use this item, it actually gets consumed, because there is a bug in the game where sometimes if you activate the cloaking spray, it won't actually consume and it won't apply the effect. I'm not sure what triggers this, whether you move too soon after you activate it, but sometimes there can be an issue where if you use the cloaking spray, it won't apply the effect, which means that the drones will still see you and shoot at you, which has screwed up my plans several times in this game. So just make sure before you go attack a drone, make sure that you actually consume the cloaking spray and the effect is actually applied. Class proficiencies, we've got In the Shadows, which gives you plus 20 stealth, which is a decent bonus. Now, this proficiency, contrary to what the name might suggest, does not just apply when you're at night. It applies during the day, and I know this because I concurrently tested the Panther class with the Echelon class, and I did notice that during the daytime, the Panther class took a little bit longer to detect than the Echelon class did. We'll talk about that, comparing Panther and Echelon more in a later video, but for now I just want to say this does apply both during the day and the night, so it's very useful, especially when combined with a perk that we'll talk about in a bit. Swift Steps, it's okay. Take it or leave. It's not that huge of a bonus, but the other class proficiencies for Panther are very good, so I don't care. That's a little lackluster. And finally, we've got Silent Death, while using a handgun or a submachine gun. the suppressor does not reduce damage. Now, if we go into Gunsmith, we open up this particular submachine gun. Normally, suppressors will reduce your damage by 20%. When you're playing as Panther and using a submachine gun or a handgun, this bonus gets removed, so you're dealing more damage, which is really nice if you like to play with submachine guns. Basically, if you like to play with SMGs, Panther is the class for you. Now, moving on to the perks, we've got at least my recommended set of perks. You can do what you want, but this is what I recommend using if you're going to play as Panther in general gameplay. Obviously, I have a set of perks meant for dealing with behemoth drones. That's in a separate video, but if you're just going to run around in bases playing as Panther, this is a perk set I recommend. Slim Shadow, which gives you extra stealth, which basically means enemies take a much longer time to actually detect you, which is good when you need to sneak around. Next up, we've got Sixth Sense, which helps, basically gives you plus 25 meters automatic marking. So if enemies are 25 meters in or closer, they will automatically mark you, which is neat, useful because you're not going to be able to recon every single enemy inside a base with your drone, especially if there's a ton of buildings and you can't recon inside of them. So this is useful, especially as Panther. You're going to be sneaking around in close quarters, so this is a very helpful perk. And then finally, Sensor Hack, because when you're playing Panther, since you have the drone spray, you're basically going to be the person in your squad, if you're playing with a squad, designated with taking out drones since you are undetected. Since the drones can't detect you while you have the cloaking spray activated. So yeah, you definitely want that extra damage to drones bonus, and also the drone evasion is nice in case you do run out of cloaking spray. Now finally, as far as the loadout goes, you are going to want to use a submachine gun and a handgun because of the class proficiency, the silent death. The only thing I would make sure you take note of is make sure that your ammo types are different between your submachine gun and your handgun, because then if you run dry on one, not that that's necessarily going to happen, but it can, if you're engaging a lot of enemies and not stopping to refuel ammo, you can, if you run dry in one, you won't run dry in another if they use two separate ammo types. And if you're going to choose a secondary weapon to play with, I recommend using the SASG-12. That is a automatic shotgun, and I obviously do recommend using the extended mag because you can dish out a ton of damage to drones. And it also fits well with the Panther's close quarters style of combat, since the shotgun, while it does have more range than in Ghost Recon Wildlands, you still kind of want to use it in close quarters, so it fits the character very well. So that concludes my review for the Panther class. It's a very good class for stealth purposes, and it's the best, in my opinion, anti-drone class in the game. Now, as far as whether Panther is better than the recently released Echelon class, that's going to be another video for another day, because there's a lot to discuss and examine between those two classes. So, yeah, look forward to that coming soon, and thank you all for watching. I'm Penguin Overlord, and I will catch you all next time. Take care, guys.